Pennsylvania.
The December 9
That's how we're
Board of Trustees meeting in the Urbana Free Library will come to order. Do I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second to that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Do we have any petitions from our community? Does our intern want to say anything? We've got a freebie here with us tonight. She contributed well this afternoon to the workshop, so I thought that was nice. But she's had other library jobs, so. Items for action or discussion, building and grounds.
Wait.
Presentation.
Presentations.
What?
You waved your hand, did you? I didn't see it.
So statistics.
Okay.
So, did everyone have a chance to look at the statistics sheet?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you to everyone for their help. Becky just raised a good question today. This is a work in progress. Hopefully, you will find this statistics sheet helpful in looking at the broad strokes efforts of the library. We can do some, charts or graphs and pull some things out. But I just wanted to highlight a couple things for you. Programming is, looking really good. We've excelled in that. The Teen Open Lab has had, last I counted, over 1,800 people in the past 18 months or so, but I know the number is higher than that. Increasing number of story times starting this year with the toddler times. So the libraries look to the other ways to increase use in card programming. You can see that the collection size goes up and down a little bit depending on the cycle of the year. That's normal depending on where we are with weeding magazines or weeding books or purchasing lots of things. There was a big bump between the end of the year purchasing May, June, and then July, August when some of the things were received and processed and added in. So hopefully over a period of time you'll see the regular ebb and flow of the library cycles. We continue to be grateful to the number of volunteers that we have providing different volunteer hours to the library. And then you can see that the notary service is going really well. Last year, even just starting in July, we had 7,400 people that we provided notary service to. So that's really great, and this year we're doing quite well also. So even at $1 per stamp, people are still happy with the service. You will see that there is not information in the line that's at the bottom of one page and then the top of the next. Auditorium conference room use, total number of bookings. We actually made some assumptions about what we thought that would be, and then we didn't share those assumptions with Becky, who asked a good question. Why is it just the auditorium and conference room when we actually do use our other spaces upstairs as well? We occasionally rent those out to, not rent, but allow the public to reserve those also, and then we use them for programs as well. So we need to refine what it is we are meaning by those numbers, and we'll add it to one of the notes. So I expect that next month we'll have something in those lines, just to let you know. What we thought we'd do is, even though that's not a number we have to report to the state, we want to reflect to you and to our community how the library is being used in different ways. And room reservations is certainly one way that the library gets used. And I know that some of you with your community groups use it as well. Bill?
Yeah, just on the reference questions, went way down the last couple months. I was wondering, when did we stop having a reference person downstairs? Is that just recently, or?
So there's what we call either the first floor satellite reference desk or the first floor reference desk, and there's always someone on the desk. It's been a period of years that sometimes it's a person who's a trained circulation clerk or a library intern or a practicum student or a librarian. So there are a number of kinds of people who could be on that station, and it's been past couple of years at least.
So no recent changes that would cause a big drop there?
Oh no, and this is reference questions across the system. Sometimes people forget to mark the number. That is always hard.
I think also sometimes other has been thrown in as reference and sometimes it hasn't.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
let me speak to that. We had been miscounting reference and adding some of the other statistics we keep into it, so we've corrected that. So it'll show a downturn for a little bit until we get them evened out.
What about current number of cards? We seem to be coming down a little bit in cards circulation. You've got an answer for that?
Every now and again, and Don could tell me how often we go through the database and look for current card holders and purge out
And purge.
people that haven't used cards in a certain period of time.
So that could be,
And so that can be part of it, depending, I don't know, is that quarterly or once a year?
We usually pull the sheets or the reports once a year, and then it takes a while to get through and because you review them individually and make sure that this is one we really needs to go. So we don't just do a mass purge.
So it's not straight by the numbers, if somebody hasn't checked out a book within,
No, it's
2 years or something like that.
It's like cards that have been expired at least a year.
okay.
Those are the ones that come.
And then maybe don't have fines attached to their card. So
Correct.
maybe you
Correct.
haven't used it in 2 years, but you still owe $50 for a book that you didn't return and some fees. So there are different reasons. We are, of course, always trying to increase awareness of the library in the community and to encourage people to get cards. But we pulled back from some activities that had people getting cards, but then not using them and having to purge a lot of cards at the end. For example, the day on the quad
Yeah, quad.
is one example of things that staff said we used to do regularly, but found out you issued a bunch of cards that a year later you were pulling out.
That makes sense, yeah.
I'm sure Quad Day inflated that terribly.
Mhm.
There was some incredible statistic, about 70–80% never got used.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of staff time inputting all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then to not have any return.
So do you share statistics with Champaign?
Hmm.
I mean,
Well-
like, I would just wonder how their cards, is it, how, if they're down or up or,
Some libraries are seeing trends that a lot of circulation and use went up during the recession, and some things are starting to go back down. Other libraries are still seeing an upward trend. Champaign is also seeing a downward trend in use.
oh, okay, that's what I was wondering. Yeah.
So I don't know about their number of card holders, but I have been told and looked at their numbers and seen that their use is down as well. One of the things that's not on here, we're trying to put the fiscal year 13 at the top of the little box, so you could see fiscal year 13, fiscal year 14 completed, then where we're at 15. We're still pulling some of the numbers, but one of the things I want to point out is that circulation is down. Last year, the circulation was 822,000, the 12-13, and then last year was 773,000. So we're down checkouts by about 50,000 items over last year. And so looking at those numbers and looking at door counts and other kinds of things is having us look at our staffing levels at the different desks. And we have talked with staff about making evaluations of where the use is, where we'd like to project our use to be, what type of work the library needs to be doing, and how do we staff for that. So we've let people know that they will likely see changes in the number of hours that some people receive because we will be staffing desks differently in a couple of different ways. And for some people, this will impact their health insurance, and we wanted to give them some notice so that if they wanted to make other choices about health insurance during open enrollment, they could think about their options. So, but CIRC is down, program is up, so we'll keep you abreast. Please let us know if this is useful information, and we'll get the rest of the data in there for you to take a look at.
It is useful. I'm just, when we look at total circulation, that's a pretty substantial number. Do we know what part of the collection that came from? I mean, was it like videos, or would it have been fiction? How are the components of that put together?
We have more detailed information about particular collection circulation. We're looking for a high-level circ here, and we are looking at, did DVDs die for some reason or
Yeah.
something? So we'll be looking at those numbers, and we
Okay.
can report back to you when we've got something. Another thing, we've added the circulation using self-check, so that's the number of items checked out on the self-check machines. And actually this week there's been a change. There had been 3 stations upstairs and 1 downstairs, and Laura had said to me a couple times, there were lines downstairs for people waiting to use the self-check. So yesterday, there are now 2 upstairs and 2 downstairs. And given a great suggestion by Ian in the circulation department, we've reoriented the adult self-check so that when you walk in and you look left, the blue lights are shining right at you. So it's maybe more visually engaging. And Dawn had said that people are using them maybe a little bit more now. Just anecdotally, people are seeing them and engaging with them more. So we see that as a success case if that's how people want to interact to check out. So we don't force people to use self-check. It is an optional thing. So looking at the circulation statistics also though, we've got the different notes at the bottom. Included in the numbers for this year certainly are the 3M Cloud items, which were new this year. We purchased $10,000 worth of titles. Those items are also self-checked because patrons check them out in the catalog or through the app to themselves, and then they get returned. So some of the circulation in there is actually not physical items that we're touching as staff, but they're digital items. So that is also a difference in how much physical work is being done by staff versus we subscribe to have a license for particular titles. So
I
just
think the door count's interesting too. It varies quite a bit, I guess, depending on what kind of programming you have going on, but the last 2 months it's been way up, so.
and we've been doing
Maybe
some.
circulation's not good, but the door count's good.
November was very cold.
I was gonna say weather too.
I would maintain though, programs going to bring traffic, and traffic brings
Yeah.
Open
circulation.
Roots Festival had, what did you say in your report, Kathy? 400 people
400.
came in just on those
Mhm.
Friday, Saturday,
Mhm.
Sunday.
It was
Friday,
hard to
Saturday.
get exact counts, but mine were pretty comparable to what the Folk and Roots Festival people had projected as well, so we commiserated.
So these things often seem kind of like dumb to do, you know, like which category are we putting it in and things. But so I have a friend who runs a credit counseling thing,
Uh-huh.
and one would think you'd get more clients when the economy's bad, but it's just the other way around. There may be, if you really have good statistical trends, you may be a function of the economy or technology and things. But I mean, it really can tell an interesting tale if you really zero in on exactly refining these things. You know, I mean, I know staff members sometimes think it's kind of. I mean, I used to do this stuff, and it's like, you know, a lot of busy work, but still, it can be really good.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
also you're learning Polaris and how to extract statistics, so it's apples to oranges and some of these things, isn't it?
Well, it was pretty darn close, and the
Yeah.
numbers that Deb had been using, doing some Polaris work and then doing a lot of math in Excel,
Right.
a very elaborate, intricate, amazing spreadsheet.
Right.
Using just some canned results in Polaris,
Mhm.
canned reports, the numbers were coming up within a couple hundred items. For example, in like the size of collection, doing something with a canned report was within a couple hundred items of what the numbers were with doing more extensive work. So we felt comfortable that these were very close. And if we lay our ground lines, our groundwork, so we know that here's where we start. And sometimes you make changes to policies which are going to have an impact. So for example, at some point in adult services and computer use, people could continue to log on all day long a number of times. And now there's a limit to the number of times to help allow more people to use the stations. So if you let people stay on all day long, you're going to have a higher number of hours than if you limit the number of engagements. So what we're trying to do then is note where we are making changes and note what our baseline is, so that we can try to compare mostly apples to apples and not apples to oranges. Thank you. So anything else about statistics? Just wanted to put it out there and say, if this doesn't suit your needs, please tell us, and we can come forward with special reports now and again. Otherwise, this is what we'll bring you on a monthly basis, and it's up on the website as well. Okay.
It's very helpful, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, now, buildings and grounds. I think we got anything? Technology. Domain server. What do we need to discuss?
More than anything, in part, we wanted to acknowledge that the board approved, and I put this in the budget amendment, in the spring and March, the board approved the purchase of a domain server that was deferred until we had an IT person on staff to make the decision of which pieces and parts. And so we held off on that purchase. We wanted to make sure that you were aware that that was deferred, and now we're in a position where we are looking to move ahead. And the price seems to be very close to what it was before. So the estimate that was given that you approved is a good one. And in the budget amendment, I talk about where I recommend we pay for that from.
Okay. So let's move to that budget amendments, December budget revisions. Some particular things you want to point out, Celeste?
I wanted to keep it as straightforward as possible. We have some other things that we'll be looking at that we will bring to the board in January when we talk about potential staff salary increases as well. But we didn't have enough data in some areas to talk about where we think we might have savings now. One example of that is the health care costs that have been put aside. The way this had been budgeted in the past is that for every employee, the full amount that they might use has been budgeted. We consistently have not needed to use that much money. The extra was then rolled into the RHS savings plan. But we know that the RHS savings plan is overfunded for what the expenses would be if all people who are qualified left tomorrow. And so I don't think we then need to continue to over budget for that purpose. And currently we're in open enrollment, so we need to wait till everyone's done picking their health insurance before we can say what our savings might be. So in January, I'll have numbers for that, for example. So I went with the ones that these are known numbers right now today.
Your explanation and everything was very clear. Just could you refresh me? Why did we used to have something set aside for parking?
Oh,
I just can't, I was trying to remember, I was looking at that and I just.
the library has paid for parking for staff. There is a lot just across the street, just west of the Tepper building. And so that was an expense that the library had. It was actually in the 7,000 plus range.
Okay. Yeah, so we were paying it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you. I mean, because I was gonna dig up previous reports and I just thought I'd ask.
And with Weber now we don't.
Because we have now free parking. That, yes. Just that.
And we have enough parking under these provisions to cover all the staff, or not?
How have you had feedback on that, Kathy? Now that winter is here-ish.
Well, we have some also in the Howard lot. How many spaces, 10 or more?
We can get them
10 spaces in the Howard lot, which is over on the east side of the Lincoln Square lot. And we say Howard lot because it's like right behind the Howard apartments.
Okay.
And
yeah.
we have 10 spots over there, so there are some staff that have something in their car or on their car that indicates they can park in either lot. But during the winter, when we know that staff are going to be driving as opposed to riding their bikes or walking, people like me who have a something that indicates I can park in both lots, I probably am going to start moving over to the other lot so that the staff lot across the street is not as full, so all staff have parking spaces.
And do we pay for that?
For Howard, no.
No.
Okay.
No, we
That's
do not. But you have to get there very early in the morning,
Yeah.
otherwise they're gone.
Okay.
It's a benefit through the city. The city
Yes.
gives us those
Yeah.
passes.
But as it stands right now, we provide parking, but we're not actually doing any out-of-pocket cost of it.
When the Weber property was purchased, the parking lot was part of that purchase.
Right. Understood. Yeah.
So the library currently pays the interest on the mortgage for the Weber property,
Mhm.
And
which
property
we have
tax.
had them look at,
Right.
so that in the rental income that comes through, that is paid for.
Okay.
So at the moment, if all goes as planned, the rent from the renters is covering the cost of the parking for the staff.
Okay. Okay, so really, it's gone from being something we actually had to pay for to something we can provide without any money flowing out directly.
Correct.
Okay, good.
So, number 3, under income, revised interest income, maybe you've talked about this before, it seems like going from budgeting 7,300 down to 1,400, is there, what's the story?
What happened with that?
Yeah, what's that about?
No money, no interest.
When the budget was developed, there's the beginning of the year budget, then there's the end of the year budget, and we looked at the beginning of last year's, the 13-14 budget, it was budgeted higher.
Okay.
And then at the end of the year, when we saw what the income actually was from interest, it was lower. But when we developed this year's budget, we didn't have all the numbers in.
Okay.
And so this is a readjustment to, oh, the reality is X.
What's
So-
the interest from what? Right.
We have the fund balance that we get in
Oh, just from
accounts.
the, okay.
Yeah, we don't have any
Not from
special
property or
CDs or
something
anything,
like
no
that.
extra property. And interest rates are really low.
I'll move approval of the budget revisions.
Second?
Is there, second. All those in favor, is there any other discussion? All those in favor,
But
please.
is there anything else you want to point out from here to us?
We are looking at where we are in the budget year, and we are hopeful to come back to you with some good suggestions about staff salary increases next month. And again, we talk with staff about different potential changes. There is a policy that allows part-time staff, they work 20 or more hours. When they pick up hours above their base, they receive more benefits in health insurance. They receive vacation, comp, and personal time in proportion to their extra hours. And they receive their higher salary than what has been budgeted for. And what we have discovered in looking at these different pieces and parts is that it's $20,000 to $25,000 a year that's not in the budget that has been paid out over the past couple of years at least to have these benefits go to staff. And so one thing we're looking at is bringing you a policy change to consider continuing that benefit for part-time staff or not. But currently, it's not completely funded in the budget as it is. So that is something we were looking at, and we're looking at where we are in the fiscal year with the budget as it stands right now.
That seems like that could be a pretty significant difference in hourly pay. I mean, if they work an extra 10 hours a week, say they're budgeted for 20 and they work an extra 10, then they would get 75% of their insurance paid instead of 50%.
That's correct.
So if they're counting on that, that could be maybe $100, $150 a month difference in what they get covered by insurance for working that extra 10 hours a week.
$660 a month if they have the full, maybe, right about that.
So that's, I don't know, works out to a couple dollars an hour. That seems pretty significant, so it'd be something
It
we'd
is.
have to consider pretty closely,
It
I
is.
think.
We will take that up at a later time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor, please, amending the budget as presented, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay. Policy. Board bylaws discussion. May I have a motion that we approve them and then we'll discuss them?
I'll move that. Move approval.
Is there a second to that?
It's just as well,
Yeah, it's just
discussion this
discussion.
month.
Oh, it is just
Yeah.
Yep,
discussion?
it's just
Okay.
discussion, because it's
Okay.
a.
I withdraw my removal.
Okay, yes, please.
I remove the approval.
Because I didn't think it was significant enough that we couldn't have approved it, but that's, okay, the business is, well, primarily attendance aboard. What are some of the other highlights?
Well, and then I would say that Bill and I had an email conversation about this. The language that I was looking at, some of the language I was looking at is what is in the city language as well. And I was approaching it from a different direction. And so it could well be that the best choice is to leave this as it is and just add in the part where the Urbana Free Library wasn't listed, there was a missing word, or just leave this as it is.
It just, it had to do with, in the Open Meetings Act in 2007, they added Section 7 that allowed electronic attendance at open meetings because it was still kind of new and nobody quite knew how to handle it, so they added that to the act. And as part of that, they require that public bodies have a specific policy to say,
Vote
to,
in or
to
approve that.
allow that. And so they allow under those three circumstances for people to attend electronically, and as part of that, they put in this language that said a majority of the body may allow, and what they really mean is by making your policy, that's how you allow it. So once we've passed the policy, we don't have to vote on it at every meeting to allow somebody to do that. You've passed the policy, so that allows them to do it. And then that 2/3 vote is if there's some kind of objection or disagreement on whether somebody really falls under one of those categories. So say they're traveling and they say they're traveling for business, but you suspect maybe they're not, and you object because you
The
don't want them.
Acapulco phone number that you're dialing.
Yeah, so somebody can object, and if you get 2/3 of people to agree with you, you can deny their attendance electronically, basically. So it's really awkward wording, but it's legal, and that's where we have it in the city code, so it's probably better to just, I'd say you could go ahead and add that Urbana Free Library section, but other than that, I'd say leave the other part the way it is.
Any other discussion on that?
Well, but I think it's irrelevant now. I just wondered, how long does it take to set up the equipment? Could you have
A request
a
to,
small battle between somebody who says, well, I called 25 minutes beforehand and said I want it to be on electronically, and that should be plenty of time, when it probably isn't. But I think if we stay with what we've got, then that's not an issue, right?
well, I asked Becky whether there was anybody else could set it up besides her, and there, you did say there was, wasn't there?
It could be done.
Yeah, so I don't really
In a
think
time,
it's,
yeah.
in a timely fashion.
So it's a non-issue. That's what I was asking.
It can be as simple as a speakerphone.
Yeah.
It doesn't
And so
have to
if
be
it's-
Skype or something like that. What my concern had been was the way I was reading it is that the 2/3 vote, if the request doesn't meet the criteria, like if it doesn't meet the criteria, it's no-go anyways.
Right.
Yeah, because I think what was concerning me a little bit was you're talking through the logic of how this was worded, and it makes sense, is that a person could be all set to go electronically, and then Chris says, I saw him out at Zojo's drinking coffee this afternoon, so. Then the vote takes place, and somebody's excluded from the meeting. I mean,
The law would require that you do that.
yeah, yeah, I guess if that's the way, that's the intent of the law, that's fine. It just seems like it's done at the last minute, there's no chance to fix it. You can fix it one way, or you can fix it the other, but you can't fix it in total. Does that make sense?
So I'm guessing we're saying that we're okay the way we are. Is that what you're saying?
That's the discussion I'm hearing. If you tell me that you'd just like me to add the Urbana Free Library, that is not a substantive change.
That's right.
And I can update
Yeah.
the policy to reflect
Editorial.
I think
that
so.
and leave the rest just as it is. If you would like me to do that, we can certainly do that.
I think as long as what the intent of this is clear.
It's your
Does
policy.
it
You're
create
comfortable with it.
problems that you can see that we're,
Do we need a motion for her to just make that?
no,
No,
because
okay.
it's just
Editorial.
fixing a typo.
I would ask that you just vote on fixing the typo,
Would
because it's
you?
a policy change.
Okay. All those in, well, we have to have a motion, I guess.
I move correction of the typo.
Although, you know what, sorry, it doesn't say action at all, so we're not gonna
No.
act anyways.
Yeah.
Next.
And I think we can give a sense of the board, straw poll, or something like that,
Yes.
instead of a formal
Yeah.
vote, since it's a typo.
It isn't an action item, but we could act upon it, couldn't we? Because it's a minor.
But I'm thinking, voting on typos is looking like how many angels dance on the head
Well,
of a pin, too.
but she said she'd like to have a vote.
No,
No.
Oh,
I forgot that
change
just
your
a
mind.
discussion, we'll just leave it, it's
Okay,
not
okay,
gonna
okay.
make or break anything to do it
Okay.
next month.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Isn't it eventually, though, this is going to be, years ago, democracy online and all that, I mean, we'll be revisiting this, I imagine, in the coming years.
I'm sure the state will.
Public comment, you know, all sorts of stuff could be thrown in.
That's a good point.
Education and training.
Just had 2 wonderful sessions in the past week with Lieutenant Joel Sanders, who came and talked to library staff and board members about working with people with mental health issues, with their particular behaviors they're exhibiting in the library, and we're grateful to him for his assistance.
And for those who were unable to attend, I thought it was very well done. The thing I asked Celeste was whether anybody, and I think that's something that maybe some of us have not been aware of, that anybody in the library can issue a ban notice. It doesn't have to go, but I think if the incident was such that they did not feel comfortable, they'd want to go to a supervisor to issue that.
It had to be less than 30 days.
That's what we have talked
Yeah.
about internally, and yes, people, when it gets to an incident like that, are looking for backup in a number of ways.
And they had a lot of things talked about. The one that struck me was the closing walk-arounds on second floor at night. And I think that is something we have to work at to see how we might arrange that. Because the example that was given tonight was that many times there's only one person on the second floor at closing. And that's not good.
So the suggestion was that sometimes shelvers come up and finish shelving in that particular area. So as the second floor reference desk person is closing down, they have another person up there, especially as the library's closing, they're clearing the building to provide that extra set of eyes.
And did I get the idea that a committee was working on some pat answers for some situations? Was there a committee that was doing it?
There's a patron committee that
Yeah.
has talked about this, and so I'll see if they're interested in taking it up, or if a different group of people would like to work on giving people some scenarios so that they can practice responses to typical kinds of interactions in advance and feel comfortable, whether they talk with colleagues or whether they just want to read them over themselves and follow with the supervisor. But give them some tools they can use to feel more comfortable in difficult situations. And other libraries have done this, and I think Mary bought a book, an ALA book with different resources available from the American Library Association. So,
Would you say 90% of the staff were in attendance at one of the two sessions?
I don't know the number. Just
Okay.
over 30 and over 20, so that's
Yeah,
over
yeah,
50
yeah.
out of. Yeah, so yes, a lot of people, well, more than half, maybe 70.
And this is probably preaching to the choir, but rehearsing those scenarios is really important, because I mean, you're in a situation where something happens, you don't expect it, and you're kind of speechless. And then you go back later on and think, why didn't I say this? If you practice those scenarios, you'll be there, you'll be calm, you won't be flustered.
And the staff were real good about posing situations. The one I thought was so funny was, and I hadn't thought about it, was people getting hit on. Oh, you know, that probably happens more than we know. So that was good. Okay, let's go to administrative reports. Anything else, Celeste, that you want to report on?
Nope, it's all in there.
Okay. Kathy? No? Mary?
Could I ask one
Sure.
question? Do we have a date for demolition of the building?
I've been told that the Aller building would be demolished somewhere in mid to late January, maybe the 17th through 21st, in that range.
Oh,
So it could be as soon as December 5th, but they're looking at a later date.
Obviously not going to be as soon as December 5th, but
That's correct.
that's what brought it up in my mind. I wondered, has there been some massive change in that? So
It's still moving ahead, and the city's put up extra barricades.
I saw that.
So that is,
Oh my
if-
goodness, that looks more permanent.
It's temporary.
Okay. Good. But by mid-January, maybe it'll be
That's what we've been told, and they've been good about keeping us in the loop so that we know
Terrific.
what to expect.
perfect.
Kathy, I noticed you talked about the domain server and the Windows upgrade with our new individual. Is that moving along? Where are we?
Yes, I meet with him on Thursday. I'm going to be meeting with him, of course, now that he's just started. I'm going to be meeting with him more often, but on Thursday, he was in the process of shopping while I was on vacation last week. So he was going out and looking at prices of things to get us started. So.
Can somebody tell us more about this Infonaut program? This is the first I remember reading about that. Have we been told about that before and I just forgot?
Mary, do you want to say something?
Several years ago, some of the adult reference money was used instead of a half-time librarian who retired, was used to fund the use of paraprofessionals at the circulation, from the circulation desk to help with the info desk downstairs. A lot of them have readers advisory or book smarts, so people can ask them questions about things to read and other day-to-day questions. And so they've been supplementing adult services by working at that desk, freeing librarians to work upstairs or perhaps swap desks. And we're in the process of training more of them and training some of them to help upstairs in the computer lab where we desperately need extra staffing. There are a lot of days there's only one person up there till like 9 or 2 o'clock or in the evening. And so as it gets less busy at circulation, we can use the trained staff to amplify other areas where we need more support.
Sounds fun. Sounds like they enjoy it.
And there's been some cross-training so that some people will be picking some hours in the circulation in the children's services department as well.
You started that training.
Karen, I don't remember, have we been receiving impact money all along, and this is nothing new, the 4,700 from the Urbana school?
Yeah.
So this is about the same figure? Okay.
Now, it's dropped over the years, you know.
It's declined, I know
Yes,
that,
in
yeah.
2008, there was a big,
Yeah, it went from, when the university stopped making the payment to
Yeah, the
the
university.
Urbana School District, the school district stopped. It had been $50,000 a year, I think.
Oh, that would have been nice.
I see, Anka, you've got a problem with all those maps and drawings.
Oh, you my picture?
Love that picture.
So that's-
Yes,
yeah.
that's certainly so.
Illustrations.
Yeah.
We'll see if, I don't think, we haven't really appraised them to see, if everything will come over, just because it's an engineering firm, it's not an architectural firm, so some of the material is not that, might not be as relevant, although we do, as part of the municipal document center's holdings that we've microfilmed and have available and indexed, includes all building plans for the city of Urbana from the they weren't building plans in the 1830s, but through 2002. So those are all searchable and are available. So in some sense, some of these plans, kind of match those. The one blueprint, so there are some architectural plans in that collection of plans, and actually the one architectural plan that I saw was for the 1975 Urbana Free Library edition.
Oh.
The favorite edition.
Yes. So maybe next time, it's still over at the location on Broadway, but maybe I'll do a show and tell.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Would the university be keeping their own, I mean, I guess?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
They're keeping all, we decided that,
Okay.
that's why I was working with
Yeah.
facilities and planning. We basically sorted everything out, everything of the university, because the university has an agreement with all firms like this engineering firm that if somebody designs something for them, the university owns the plans.
That's interesting.
That's usually the case.
Are they all public buildings or some of them private buildings?
Oh, no, they're all private. I mean, the universities are, both, the universities are university buildings. There are some fraternities which are, private, but many of these buildings were local businesses, mostly businesses, commercial properties, a lot of commercial properties. So some of them are kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Well, one picture's worth 1,000 words here.
Yeah, it was. It was definitely something. John, do you have anything to add? Okay. Laura? No? Okay. Unfinished business? New business? Do I have a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel?
So moved.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Becky, would you call the roll?
Jane?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Beth?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Mel?
Yes.
Closed session.
Thank you.